Live. It stars Over the Prairie with 8-time Minnesota Music Award-winning songwriter, musician, author, and historian, Paul Mestsa. Check out previous show podcasts at kdal610.com. Now, here's Paul Mestsa.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Stars Over the Prairie. This is your host, Paul Mestsa, with my wingman, Chris Allen. We hope you're enjoying the 4th of July weekend. We've got a great show today. What do we do on Stars Over the Prairie? We interview stars, people that used to be stars, people that want to be stars, people that have nothing to do with stardom but like to go outside, crack a cold one, and look at the stars. But we got a real rock star on the show today in the second half of the hour. We're going to be talking to my old buddy Dan Murphy, one of the founding members of Soul Asylum, who's now playing with a great combo for the last handful of years called The Scarlet Goodbye. They will be performing this coming Thursday as part of the Lute Song Festival up in Lutsen, Minnesota. Their show is 6 p.m. to, I believe, 7:30. Free show at the North Shore Winery. It's going to include Dan, another longtime Minneapolis musician and songwriter, Jeff Arundel, and Pat Frederick, who's a phenomenal fiddle player, was one of the founding members of the country rock band Daisy Dillman. A few years ago, they celebrated their 50th anniversary, and it's the most unlikely combo of musicians I can remember in my 40 years in the Minnesota music scene. I know all the guys, know them all for years. Looking forward to chatting with them. And then we're also going to be chatting with the man who put together the Lit Songs Song Festival, which is really an amazing event. Another old buddy of mine, Scott Schuler. But before we'll do a little cleanup here to tell you what's going on. We're down to just 1 hour a week now for the summer season anyway. It's going to make it a little more compact, a little more doable in a way. I could sleep in an extra hour.
That's the key right there, I think, yeah.
That's not the reason, but it is key. Although my dogs thought, hey, Dad usually gets up at 7. Let's wake him up. And I go, no, I'm trying to get to 8 today on bed.
Dogs have that extra sense. They kind of have the alarm clock in their head.
Yeah,
and
totally.
When you throw it off, they're like, okay, what's going on? We're going for a haircut or the vet today, aren't we?
Yeah. But delightful. They even give me at least about 1/4 of my bed I can sleep in.
That's nice.
Oh, yeah. They give me some room. But it's a beautiful... it's a beautiful day here in Tilt Town, seeing the city by the Insulted Sea. We are 237 somersaults down the hill from Bob Dylan's childhood home and a stone's throw away from Bob Dylan's Way, which runs all the way through the city of Duluth. If it is your birthday today, you are a Cancer, and we're going to tell you what's going on here for the next 12 months.
Too bad we weren't on the air yesterday. Yesterday was my birthday. The 3rd was my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks.
How was your 40s feeling?
It was good.
You look good for however old you are.
112.
But you still got the body of a 111-year-old.
And that's what I'm working for.
Hey, your birthday horoscope today. Don't be too secretive or too open about your plans over the next 12 months. Give friends and loved ones enough info to know what you're up to, but not so much that your actions become predictable. Always keep them wanting more. It's a good showbiz adage as well. Who was born on today over the years? P.T. Barnum, a man who said... There's a sucker born every minute. Boy, he is so right on with the times, even though he was born in 1810 in Bethel, Connecticut, died in 1891. The great circus promoter and showman. Jean Cocteau, the French poet, filmmaker, and painter, was born in 1889 in Maison Lafayette, France, passed away in 1963. Here's one of yours, I'm sure one of your favorite artists. Huey Lewis is 75 years old today.
Yeah, and his hearing is gone.
Yeah, but he's still out there working somehow.
Yeah, he has. He goes by feel now, and I used to work with a friend who was deaf, and we'd go to concerts and stuff, and we would stand up by the speakers, and he'd put his hand on the speaker.
Wow.
So I wonder if Huey has some kind of thing where he puts it in his coat pocket, and he can feel the music and know when to sing. And
I've played gigs where audience members put their hands on the speakers so they didn't have to hear me.
Right.
Is that similar?
It's pretty close.
Oh, we had a great gig yesterday at my weekly Carmody's Irish Pub, 308 East Superior Street. My ladies, Macy and Oliver, had been sick all week, and but they came around, and we do our 5:30 to 7:30. Their stage name, of course, is the Tilltown Titanettes, and they just did a wonderful job. A few years ago, I got into a rabbit hole about these Wild West shows that used to happen in the late 1800s.
Okay.
Do you know much about that, Chris?
I know very little. I know of them. That's all I can really say with confidence.
Well, you had these Western legends like Buffalo Bill Cody and Wild Bill Hickok. Mm-hmm. Buffalo Bill had a production called The Wild West and Congress of Rough Riders of the World. And he would literally put together a show between 300 to 500 people. We're talking Rough Riders. We're talking Indians. They would redo battles. They had sharpshooters and showmanship riding, and travel these people around the country. Took them to Europe. Took 200 people that were involved in the production and staff to Europe with, we're talking dozens of horses and stagecoaches and the rest. I don't know why I got into it. I think I was trying to figure out, how can I get it together to take my trio down to Mankato on a tour? And I got into this, man, and it blew my mind. It was really, you think about, everybody needed entertainment, and back then they would go into these, large events. Sometimes they'd carry a tent with them. But, for example, Chris, in 1892, he had a tour, 500 members of the show and staff, 25 cowboys, dozens of cowgirls, 100 Indians with their families, because they would show like life on the
range and everything.
Yeah, on the range, how the Native Americans lived, and then they would actually feign these battles. What was interesting, Buffalo Bill paid everyone equally, women and the Native Americans. They got 3 generous meals a day and put them up in, a lot of them slept in tents, but sometimes they would take 2 trains with 50 cars apiece.
Wow. I bet you people paid for that, because that was, there wasn't the internet or anything, so the only way they could experience this way of life was to go to this show.
Yeah, and they sold out Madison Square Garden, among other places. In 1899, Chris, alone, they traveled they had 2 trains, 50 cars apiece, 11,000 miles in 200 days with 341 performances around the country.
Wow.
It's just, and then, of course, talkies started, and then not long after radio. So Buffalo Bill, unfortunately, went bankrupt in about 1910. But it's really a fascinating rabbit hole to jump into some night if you're sitting around and you want to learn about that.
That shows that he didn't really stay with the times, because I bet you he could have changed the show in order to reflect where media was going at that time.
Good point, but this then started the advent of cowboy movies, both in silent and then on the silver screen. And then, of course, we remember Gunsmoke and Have Gun Will Travel. So really that the idea of stories and performances about the Wild West, really, you've got Yellowstone.
Yeah, and I bet you didn't have to pay as big for the production, where you could just go to the movie.
Yeah. So, but that's just a rabbit hole I jumped into a few years ago, and then when I was doing a little research on famous birthdays. I saw P.T. Barnum, and I remembered Buffalo Bill and Wild Bill Hickok. May they rest in peace. I think I was driving. I played in Denver years ago, and I was driving back down from the hill country, and I think it was Wild Bill Hickok's grave was there, or maybe it was what was it, Wild Bill Hickok?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, speaking of great promoters, we're going to get in touch and speak with Scott Schuler, who's putting on Lute Songs. We're going to listen to a little music before we get Scott on the horn. He's got just a really wonderful 3 or 4 day event with a wide variety of Minnesota musicians, and he's going to tell us all about it. He and I go way back. Scott's a songwriter and guitar player and singer himself, so he knows good music when he hears it. All right, those are the dulcet sounds of Lucy Michelle, who will be performing at the Lute Songs Music Festival, and we have the Major Domo, King of the Hill, on the horn with us, a man that we used to hang out a little bit back in Minneapolis back in the day, Scott Schuler, who put this show together. Scott, how are you this morning?
Hey, Paul, doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. I know you're wearing a lot of hats up there. You're working at the North Shore Winery. You're promoting events. Do you still get time to play it all?
Yeah, a little bit. Not as much as I'd like, not like the old days, but I host a little campfire up at Caribou Highlands Lodge every Sunday, which is kind of like a camp counselor gig. I sit with old women and make little kids do cartwheels and play some songs. Always a few guitars up there, so whoever's in town wants to play on a Sunday night, just come on up and grab one of the guitars. It's pretty fun.
When did you end up in Lutsen, Scott?
I bought a lot up here in 2015. I knew it was my destination, and I got tied up with a couple of projects down in St. Paul, and as I was exiting the bar business, and I finally built a house up here about 2 years ago. Moved up here full time almost 5 years ago, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Wow! So tell us, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff with you, but tell us first and foremost about this great festival, the Lute Song Music Festival. Who's playing? Yeah. When's it going on? And where can people camp and or stay if they are trucking up there?
Right on. Well, that's a mouthful. That we've got, it all kind of started with our mutual and dear friend, Molly Mayer.
The best.
Molly was, just the greatest. She's been a great friend for so many years. But her and I were hanging out actually at Caribou Highlands one night, playing guitars around the fire, and we just started talking about, we need to do something up here. There used to be some festivals on the North Shore, but they've dwindled. And we thought about how we'd want to do it and the type of talent we'd like to have, and then we spent 2 years building it. So Molly and I co-founded it, and we brought Chuck Corliss in, who's another really good buddy. He owns the winery, and the three of us got this thing off the ground. So going into our 4th year this year, and we think we've kind of curated something really cool that I think the greatest compliment is so many of the musicians love to play it and want to come back. And that's more important to us than ticket sales, although we like ticket sales. Yeah. So come on up.
Now, I believe, our guest after you today would be my old buddy Dan Murphy, who was originally in Soul Asylum, and now he's playing with Jeff Arundel. But I believe did the Scarlet Goodbye play up there before? Was that an Arundel solo show?
No, that's Scarlet Goodbye. We love Danny and Jeff. Jeff and I are both old restaurant buddies, and Danny's just the greatest. They kind of do our Thursday night kickoff, which is a free show for the whole community. It's not a ticketed event. We do that at the North Shore Winery, and they've been good enough to do it for 3 years in a row, which is fantastic. And along with them, Dusty Hart, my dear friend Barbara Jean Mayers, and Holly Dean, they're the two of them open up on Thursday night and do a free community kickoff. So it's great to have Jeff and Danny up.
Now, where can people stay? Is there campgrounds? Is there hotels? Or if they're coming from Duluth, they can drive back. But
it's a little bit of a difficult scenario because we don't have campgrounds other than Cascade National Park and Lambs Resort. They may still have some spots left there, but nothing right on Ski Hill Road. It's something we've been working on and trying to figure out for a while. but as of yet. So just, visit Cook County's got a list of last-minute reservations available. So if anybody wants to go to visitcookcounty.com, they might be able to find some last-minute reservations if things are getting tight. But usually people stay at Caribou Highlands or the Mountain Inn, Cliff Dweller, and our good friends at Cascade Lodge as well. They do what they can, but it gets kind of full up here in the summer.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's and I've really been amazed over the years. People ask me a lot if do you get up to the North Shore much? Well, our family's cabin was on Lake Vermilion, so when I was coming from Minneapolis, Scott, I would just keep hiking up 53 till I got to go through my hometown of Virginia, Minnesota, till I got to Lake Vermilion. I never took a right and took the other 2 hours to Grand Marais, although I have been up there several times over the years because I had a lovely girlfriend, one of my best friends, Amy, who's Donlin, whose sister and brother-in-law lived up there. And so we'd get up there, but I think the first time I really got up to enjoy a weekend was probably around 2010 or 2011. And I was really amazed at the music scene up there, how it was just starting to grow. Talk about what you've seen, and we'll talk about the festival some more. But just, I know we've got our buddy Bump Lomberg up there playing, and who is the name of the band? But tell us about the music scene on the North Shore.
It's literally one of the reasons I moved up here. I kind of moved up here because I'm a skier and a music fan. And sadly, as everybody knows, we lost Papa Charlie's, which was, in my opinion, one of the best venues in the state.
I played there years ago, but I'll tell you what, I would tell my buddies that were playing up there, because it was back then, it was a 2-night gig. And I said, if you're going to stay, because they provided rooms, I said, but if you're going to have a few cocktails after the gig, which occasionally the Mestsa group did, try to get a room as far away from all the skiers that are waking up at 6 and 7 that are clomping by your room in their ski boots, because it could be a bit frightening. But you moved up there, and tell us about some of the musicians that are just located up there that we should know more about.
Yeah, it really is a rich environment for musicians. When I moved up here, I thought it was like Nashville, where everybody, the gas station and restaurant place. Right. It's not quite like that, but it is a really rich scene. Our really good friends Mike Lewis and Barbara Jean play every Friday at the winery, and they played throughout the winter, and that's just a treat. Bump, like you said, Bump plays quite a bit up here, and he's a real good buddy. Gordon Thorne is another one.
Oh yeah, Gordon's an old buddy of mine.
Yeah, Gordon plays every Thursday at the winery. There's just so many. We get a lot of musicians coming through. We do a great series at the winery all summer long, every Sunday. And Eric Frost plays every Tuesday up here. Frost, he's just a old pro. So it's a great scene. A lot of musicians coming and going. Up yonder and Gunflint Tavern up in Grand Marais book really good music. And there's a few other spots that kind of come and go up here, but it's a great scene. A lot of people come through. Everybody loves the North Shore, Paul, as you know, and I know how near and dear Vermilion is to you, and it is gorgeous over there, but we got our own special thing here that just draws the people up, and it's kind of an inspirational spot for artists of all kinds, and definitely musicians.
Now tell us more about, the kickoff is Thursday night, including our friends Jeff Arundel, Danny Murphy, and Pat Frederick with the Scarlet Goodbye. Then what's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday do you have in store for us? Yeah,
it's a huge lineup. Thursday, like you said, Scarlet Goodbye and Dusty Heart. Friday, we're pretty excited to open up. We did this last year, and it's become something we want to do every year. But we open up with the Stonebridge Singers, which are part of the Grand Portage First Nations family, and they do a drum circle and kind of bless the whole festival, and that's a pretty moving, really cool thing to witness. And then Jack Platt kicks us off, and Jack's an old favorite and friend for a long time down in the cities. We got Jack Platt, then Jeremy Messersmith, who everybody knows, Molly Dean is playing after Jeremy, and she's got a brand new album out that is just ethereal and beautiful.
I was listening to that last night when I was going over through the lineup, and I was just knocked out at how beautiful that music was.
Right? Yeah, just really, really introspective and gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then, this is the first year we've ever repeated any artists, and we want to keep bringing fresh things up here every year. But Wild Horses is on such a trajectory. We had them play the winery like 3 years ago, and they're they're kind of over in what are they from Grand?
Yeah, Grand Rapids, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. But their trajectory's been crazy. They're doing dates with Trampled by Turtles now. They're opening for Charlie Crockett later this summer. But they're definitely a headline act, and we were really excited to have them headline on Saturday.
I saw them open up for
Friday night.
I saw them open up for Willie Nelson.
Yeah, that's a pretty great gig.
Yeah.
They're awesome. And then so we do, just to let people know, we have 2 stages up at Caribou Highlands Lodge, and they're our main partner on this thing. They're just wonderful people to work with. But 2 stages there, and then the headliner each night, weather permitting, is at the winery. And we provide a shuttle to get people up and down. You don't have to worry about it. It's hassle-free, and people have really seemed to enjoy that. So when Wild Horses gets done with their set, everybody shuttles back up to Caribou Highlands Lodge, and we have the Caribou Campfire Guitar Pull, which is almost the most magical part of this whole thing, because most of the musicians, almost all of them that are playing the festival, gather around a big campfire and start to share songs and do it acoustically and do it the way they wrote those songs. And that's a really special time that people love to have. And it's access you don't normally get.
I never went to the Winnipeg Folk Festival. A lot of my friends played up there, and a lot of my favorite musicians did as well. And they would always there'd be various campfires around after the festival. And there was a great story that Dave Ray, the great Dave Snaker Ray, from, of course, the Holy Trinity of Colonel Rand Glover, took over his father's insurance business at one time when he wasn't playing as much. And there was another guy who is, what the hell is his first name was Jeff. I can't remember him off the top of my head. But anyway, he was a West Bank folkie. And he was up there one night, and some guy was singing some blues around the campfire. And Jeff, of course, not only knew Dave Ray, but had him as an insurance man. And he walked by him and he said, "My insurance man can sing better than that."
I love that. I love that.
Scott, do you got a website that people can go to and check it out?
We do. It's lutesongmusicfestival.com. And if I could just really quick tell you about
go ahead. Yeah, please do.
Yeah, because we talked about Friday. But Saturday, we're going to open with yoga with Mary Bew. Everybody was Mary. Yoga on the lawn, and then a hike and a concert with Sarah Morris. But then we've got Rogue Valley, who has a new record coming out in October. We've got Eli Gardner, somebody that nobody up here knows except for a few that might have seen him at First Ave. Nikki Diamonds is up from Austin, Texas. He's an amazing songwriter. Then Lucy Michelle, as you talked about. One of the people I'm really excited about is a Native woman named Sarah Kay, and she's down from Thunder Bay. Super excited to have her. She's going to blow up. She's just got an amazing voice. And then Scarlett Woods and the Twins of Franklin, Killer Harmonies. Bumps kid Lyndon Graham, who is actually a really, really talented songwriter.
Cool.
Yeah, and then we've got Turn, 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 and the Honey Dogs kick it off and finish it off on Saturday night. Honey Dogs also have a new record coming out at the end of the month. And so we got both Adams bands, and we couldn't be happier to have them.
Who doesn't love the Levy Brothers? Well, this sounds like a wonderful event, Scott. It's nice to hear your voice again. We haven't chatted in a handful of years. I don't know if I can make it up this weekend or not, but I want to wish you great success. And please give my best to our mutual friends. Give Molly Mayer a big hug for me, of course. I'm such a huge fan and a good friend of hers. And you're doing great work up there, Scott. And just have a really wonderful event.
Well, thanks so much for everything, Paul. We appreciate it. We got a ticket at will call if you can make the drive. It'll be there for you.
That sounds great. I might take you up on that.
I hope you do, man. We really appreciate it. Love what you're doing. Love the books. And cheers, man. Thank you.
Okay, Scotty. Have a great time.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. We've got the great Danny Murphy coming up formerly of Soul Asylum, and now rocking with the Scarlet Goodbye. But we got to hear from a few people that keep Stars Over the Prairie on the air.
I'm Sydney, and I had Z LASIK at Weiss Eye Center. Oh, man, camping and like being able to look up at the stars or like wake up to the stars or wake up to the sun and not have to kind of fumble around to see where my glasses are. So I'm looking forward to that eventually. It's like getting out and enjoying nature with sort of no barrier. Oh, the staff were really great. Yeah, it was really, always felt pretty taken care of and very friendly staff, and they were answering my questions even if they were like really, really trivial. It's something that you gotta have like sort of a bit of trust in this doctor.
Weiss Eye Center is the only clinic to offer blade-free Z LASIK in the Northland. To find out more and to arrange your free consultation, call 218-625-1917 today or visit weisseyecenter.com for more information. Weiss Eye Center. See the best.
Gray Wolf Lodge, located on gorgeous Pelican Lake in beautiful Orr, is the great getaway in northern Minnesota. Featuring affordable, modernized cabins that rent by the week or even a few days, Gray Wolf Lodge is your place to treat the family or just yourself for a relaxing time away from it all. With great fishing, yoga classes, massage, boat rentals, a sandy beach, a common gathering area with a fire pit, and the gorgeous and rustic Gray Wolf Lodge, hosts John and Carol have thought of everything for your unforgettable stay. Give them a call at 1-800-840-9653 or go to graywolflodge.com to see all that they have to offer. Gray Wolf Lodge, your home away from home in the Northwoods.
Every day deserves a superior beer. Earth Rider Brewery's decorated brewers hand-select hops that lend citrus notes to the crisp and easy-drinking Superior Pale Ale. Visit Earth Rider Brewery's Cedar Lounge Tap Room on the Working Harbor in Superior for their award-winning flagship and seasonal brews on tap and to go. To find out much more about Earth Rider Brewery events, join the mailing list and locate Earth Rider Beer near you at earthrider.beer. Hold fast.
Hey, this is Charlie Parr. You are listening to Stars Over the Prairie radio show with Paul Mestsa on KDAL 610 AM or 103.9 on your FM dial.
Yeah, those beautiful sounds are from the band The Scarlet Goodbye. I've got one of the main guys on the phone, an old buddy of mine we've knocked around for, God, years and years and years, Mr. Danny Murphy, one of the founding members, not only of Soul Asylum, but the band before that called Loud Fast Rules. God, I think I saw that band, Danny, way back when. But you're playing
probably in the entry.
Yeah, probably in the entry.
Opening up for some other band that no one ever heard of at the time, you know?
Dan, you are really a kind of a Minnesota rock and roll legend and one of the sweetest guys in the biz. Before we get into The Scarlet Goodbye, which I'm it's got the weirdest combination of. When I heard about The Scarlet Goodbye that included Jeff Arundel, who's known as Mr. Yacht Rock, who wrote a great song called Harmon Killebrew, Danny Murphy from Soul Asylum, and Pat Frederick from Daisy Dillman, I go, that is the weirdest freaking combination of Minnesota musicians I've ever heard. But the end result is really, really spectacular. You guys sound great.
It's kind of a three-headed monster of sorts. But yeah, it was funny. I mean, I kind of moved into the neighborhood where Jeff had Hefe, and he was opening a place at the time called The Hideaway, like maybe, I don't know, 7 years ago.
Right.
And we just started hanging out a little bit, and I got invited to his Christmas party. Like, it was the December before COVID hit, so like 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure.
And he's like, hey, do you want to come up? I didn't even know Jeff well. I wasn't familiar with his music, nor he with mine. And, we'd met politely, but I never really sat down with him and talked about, what makes the world go around. But we went up to the studio, and he played this track that he was just finished working on. And it was a beautiful little studio, like super humble up in his attic. There was no ping pong tables or receptionists. I mean, it's like what a recording studio should look like.
Right.
He played this track, and it really kind of spoke to me. I didn't even know at the time. It was a song that he had written, and some country guy cut it in the attic, and it was just a lovely song. And then he's like, well, maybe it would be the worst thing if we, got together and tried to write something and see what that would be like. We did it maybe a month later, and we decided to record it, and it came out pretty good. And then we just started writing songs together and apart from each other. And he's got a pretty good nucleus of a band together. He's got a great drummer named Ben Peterson, a great bass player named Pat Nelson and Pat Frederick. And we've also done some stuff with Jeff Victor, who was in Sussman Lawrence.
Oh, yeah, love Jeff. Love Jeff.
Yeah, he's a musician. Also, we've done some tracks with my friend Steve Gorman that just moved to Minneapolis. He was a drummer for like 30 years in the Black Crowes.
Is he the guy that has the morning show on KQRS? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I knew him. I didn't know him well. I knew him because we played shows with the Black Crowes, and their first band was called like Mr. Crow's Garden or something, and they were kind of like an REM new wave band, and they opened for us in a few shows in Atlanta. I remember that, too. And he turned out to be my neighbor at the place I lived down the street from Jeff's restaurant. I just saw him walking his dog one day, and he just moved there. I was like, well, this is weird, dude. How you doing,
Wow. Small world. Now, before I want to get back, because you've got such a great, 40-year history of playing rock in the world, but really being one of the mainstays in the Twin Cities music scene. What is the name, the Scarlet Goodbye? Where did that come from?
We were thinking about calling the band, originally we were going to call the band Love Child, which I thought was kind of funny, but then we looked and there's about 10 of those already kicking around. So then I was like thinking, what do you think about the Irish Goodbye? Because that was kind of an expression that people were starting to use then. And then we said, well, it's not really Irish music. It'd be kind of deceptive.
Right.
And then Jeff said, what do you think of the Scarlet Goodbye? I said, I think that's great. So it just kind of evolved from, I don't know, we didn't want to have a name that was a gag name.
Right.
And, I think that's kind of evocative. And when I think of the Scarlet Goodbye, it kind of sounds like the music we make, in terms of what it conjures up inside of yourself.
Yeah, it's got almost kind of a, you think of musical keys, and it's got kind of that, when I think of the Scarlet Goodbye scene, kind of a like purplish haze out there, or something like that.
Kind of mournful, maybe a little bit sad.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
The weird thing, Paul, is I think I've been in 4 bands in my whole life,
Right.
I didn't really I think I was in Solo Sound for 31 years.
Wow.
The Golden Smog I'm still in, and the Scarlet Goodbye, and my high school band was called At Last, and I think we broke up for obvious reasons because that was the name of our band, right?
Where'd you grow up, Danny? Where was your high school?
I grew up in Duluth.
Really?
I went to Chester Park Elementary School.
Cool.
And we lived on Spear Avenue, and my dad was a civil engineer for the city of Duluth.
Really?
Yeah.
How long?
And then in 4th grade,
go ahead.
My mom and dad got separated, and I moved with my mom and my sisters to Minneapolis. That was when I was in 4th grade. So I still go back to Duluth quite a bit. My stepmother's still there, and I have stepbrothers there. And it really, sitting on the lake there, it still really feels like home to me for some reason, just because I was born there, I suppose.
Wow. That's something I did not know before we started to chat. Well, that is very cool. Let's go back a little bit because people, Soul Asylum is still a very beloved band. And how did you hook up with Dave Perner? Was it, tell us the story.
Pretty funny story, yeah. So I started living at Carl's house. I was a freshman in college. I'd gone to Madison freshman year. And Carl had just gotten back from Europe.
And that's for the people that don't know. That's Carl Mueller, the great,
good
buddy of mine, and a great bass player.
All around great guy.
Yeah.
He was kind of the moral compass of the band all those years for sure.
Well, with Perner in the band, you need a moral compass.
You need 2 of them, my friend.
Exactly. I love Dave. Don't get me wrong. We're just having fun.
I totally. So Carl went to. He lived over. He was a carryout at Lund's in Uptown, and he was dating, a pretty hot West High girl. And Dave went to West, and he's like, Dad, So I met Dave just literally being a carryout, and I said, hey, I play music. He was in a band called The Shits. I think you can say that because it ends in a Z, so it's not a swear word.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. And so he was playing with a bunch of kids from West, and they played at Zoogies, and I saw them there, and I thought, I'm not in love with the band, but I think that singer's got something going on for sure. He, writes some really interesting songs. So I kind of swayed him to play with Carl and I. And Carl had just started playing bass a few months earlier. And Dave was kind of intimidated by my very mediocre guitar playing. So he said, I'll do it, but I got to play drums. So Perner was the first drummer in the band. We were a trio called Loud Fast Rules.
Wow. Very cool. So when did, how did it evolve and morph into Soul Asylum?
Well, we played in Carl's Ma's garage. We did a lot of covers. We wrote a few songs. I think the first one Dave wrote that I remember being like a Loud Fast Rules song was called Two Faces. And I think I wrote one called Nowhere to Go. And then we had one called Planet Zero. So they're all just kind of, you know, very amateurish attempts at looking, you know, at music through a punk rock lens. You know,
Sure.
we were really into that stuff. And then I said, Dave, you got to switch to guitar. So we got my high school band drummer, Pat Morley, was the original drummer. And then we got Grant Young, and he played with us for a really long time. And then we started playing with, like, Sterling Campbell and people like that,
Right.
and Michael Bland.
Well,
So
Grant,
it's the same thing. The drummer seat is always the one that is the hardest to fill and is the one that's most often looking for someone different.
just look at Spinal Tap in terms of the drummer seat.
Our world wasn't that much different, you know.
Well, you know, and Grant is, I know he ended up, after his stint with the band, he ended up buying a lodge up in Ely. And
Yes, he did.
every now and then I would see him when I was living in Northeast Minneapolis. We'd have a couple of pints together at Grumpy's Bar, 22nd and 4th. Grant's just a great guy. Do you know if Grant is playing anymore? Does he play?
I think he's played a little bit, but not much. I think he has a construction company, and I see him around on occasion. And I think, you know, it's never easy, like, when you lose a band member, and, like, Grant didn't quit. He was replaced.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's like, when I walk into a place that he is, either sometimes we'll say hi and shake hands, or other times we'll just glare at each other. We're still in that state of our past friendship.
It's always tough. Now, tell us, when did, I believe I saw Loud Fast Rules at the entry. And then when did you actually get signed?
Well, that's kind of a funny story, too. It's probably 1982 or maybe 1983.
Right.
We went to Madison and Chicago with the Replacements, and I think it was maybe Indianapolis, too. And the first show was at a place called Merlin's that was in Madison.
Mm-hmm.
And we opened up for the Replacements, and Peter, who I knew pretty well, I knew Tommy and Paul, and I guess I knew Bob about as well as anybody could know Bob.
Right.
But after the show, Peter Jesperson walked into our dressing room and said, "Here's a picture of beer, boys. I want to sign you guys to my label, Twin Fun." We were just ecstatic. And that was the only game in town, you know.
Yeah, and he was, Jesperson, of course, he held forth when I first moved to Minneapolis in 77, 78. He, was running the Orfolks Octopus Records at 26th and Lindale, which I'd be there 4 or 5 times a week. You could still get records back then for 50 cents and a buck. So I saw, and Peter, and then, he DJ'd down at the Longhorn, but really was kind of the Brian Epstein of Minneapolis in terms of...
Yeah, he was a very large figure, and, that's absolutely true. And, he coveted bands like the only ones when they came to town, and he knew the REM guys really well. And, I mean, Paul Westerberg isn't a very trusting person,
right.
I found out over the years. But at some point, he brought a cassette tape into Orfolk when Peter was working there and said, "Hey, give this a listen." And, from that point on, it changed Peter's life and the Replacement's life, because he's like, how is this possible? Like some kind of shy dude wearing ill-fitting pants comes in here with a cassette tape, and it just blows my mind like this. So it was kind of a storybook beginning, I think, right?
Have you read Peter's book?
I haven't.
I've got to get my hands on that.
I talked to him about it. I haven't, but I've talked to him about it some. And, Peter was kind of hit or miss. Like, we made this record with Peter. Like, with him as our A&R guy, we went to Paul Stark's Mobile Lounge. And, we didn't play very good, and they wanted to kind of do it live, and we weren't very good harmony singers at that time. So, it was kind of just a big, sort of beautiful mess. And then Twin Tone wasn't very interested in putting anything out. And so then moves into town David Ayers, who I think was a writer at the university paper at the time. And he actually kind of loved the band and took us under his wing and got our records put out. And we made some. So, Peter was kind of gone by the time that we were starting to do stuff with Twin Tone, even though he initially signed us.
Right. David, yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. Great guy, really, and good-looking dude.
Super good guy. Yeah.
Just kind of a
real good guy. You know, he's like the only, and then he, of course, he got replaced as our manager right as Grave Dancers Union was coming out. So he did all the work and got none of the recognition or cash.
So when did you guys move to the big label then?
Well, we made a couple Twin Tone records. I think one was called Made to Be Broken and one was While You're Out. And then we were going to sign to A&M because there was this guy there that loved the band. And we had to make another EP for contractual reasons.
Sure.
So we made one that was called Clam Dip and Other Delights, and we're signing to A&M. So it's kind of a play on the Whipped Cream and Other Delights record that they had, that every teenage boy or younger our age knows that image very well.
Well, and that record, I believe, featured Carl Mueller covered in whipped cream.
It did, yeah. It was clam dip, though. We went to Lund's. We got a bunch of fish and stuff, and so it was like this really nasty-looking clam dip. And it was Carl shirtless. And the same pose that was created by Dan Corrigan took the picture. And so we thought it was really funny, but we found out pretty quickly that Herb Albert, who was the A&M, has absolutely no sense of humor. Just none.
You know,
I had lost on him, Paul.
I had a copy of that with Carl covered in whipped cream and clam dip, and unfortunately, it ended up getting some water damage. Yeah, I bet Herb, Herb's a cool cat. He's still out there playing. I think he's almost 90 years old.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that trying to hit him in a
years after
sour
the fact.
patch.
Yeah, we were in L.A. and we're still on A&M, and I think our A&R guy took us to a Herb Albert show, like some big place, like Hollywood Bowl or something. And we go backstage, and Dave and hey, we're Dave, and I'm Dan from Solo Time. He's like, great. He had no idea we were even on the label. And it's a small label, man.
Right.
He's like, look at us, like great kids. You should have, he had no idea we were even on their label.
I remember, Dan, I was out. I had a little label deal with this little label that I can't remember what it was. But anyway, I got a chance to spend some time out in Los Angeles in the summer of '92, and I went to, I believe the record release for Grave Dancers Union, wasn't it at that same bowling alley that they filmed the scene from the Jeff Bridges movie with John Goodman?
Was it in Chicago or was it in New York?
No, it was in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, yeah. I remember we did like one of those in every town. Like, that was kind of the point when Grave Dancers finally came out. Like we had the song "Runaway Train" recorded and demoed, and it sounded not quite as good as the record, but almost identical to it. We didn't change the arrangement or the instrumentation. So pretty much every label for that year wanted to sign us, which was kind of nice. And we chose Columbia because Donnie Einer was ahead there, and he literally said to us, I can't find anybody in music that doesn't think highly of your band. If I can't make you guys sell millions of records, I'm a complete idiot. You should sign with me. And we said, okay.
Wow.
It was just the best pitch,
Yeah, for sure. Well, now it's coming to me. The movie was The Big Lebowski.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember that scene, yeah.
Right. And so
the bowling shirts, yeah.
Yeah, I believe I was hanging out there with Dennis Pawlowski. Hey, I got to ask
Dennis and Dave are friends. The other thing I want to remember, what was your single? I was thinking about the CC Club the other day because I actually went in there for the first time in like 30 years.
Yeah.
In-store at the record store. Now, before they had like the digital jukebox, it was 45s. What was the Paul Mestsa single that was in there? There was a single that was in there for years.
It could have been. It was either 59 coal. I think it was 59 coal mines.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exact 50. So I would say that song, or Dizzy Road by Run Westy Run, or She's Happy by the Gear Daddies was the most played single in the jukebox for at least 5 years straight.
Wow. I met the great Pat Dwyer, and I'm sure you know Pat, the owner of Grumpy's. And,
great guy. I love him, yeah.
Yeah, and
the Palmer's just closed in Minneapolis.
September 14th, I know. We are all mourning it. I was at spending a leisurely afternoon at Palmer's, and Pat used to work at a bike shop in the neighborhood, and he came in. He'd always have a pint of Guinness and a banana and sandwich at the bar, and somebody played
Elvis.
Yeah, somebody played. Yeah, exactly. Somebody played 59 Coal Mines, and I think he did. And he came up and sat down. And he goes, "Man, I really love this song." I said, "Well, that's me." Yeah. And so Pat and I got to be friends. Well, I'm glad to know know it's still on the jukebox at the CC, and I'm glad the CC is still there. Hey,
Yeah,
I gotta ask my wingman, Chris. Do we need to? Are we good with the ads? Okay, we're good. We've got Danny Murphy on, who's a longtime member of Soul Asylum. I've seen many shows, and of course, Dave and I have hung out. You and I have hung out. Dave's still out there doing it. Do you? You still get to see Dave every now and then?
Well, I do. When you leave a band, it's never friendly. So Dave and I have never. I mean, it's kind of it's not even a deal because we were in a band together for 31 years.
Yeah.
So how would it possibly end any other way than we don't really care for each other very much?
Yeah. Well,
because it starts at a place and ends. But I had nothing but respect for Dave and his music and the time I spent in the band.
Yeah.
But when I left, it was really time for me to not do it anymore because it just had turned into something that oftentimes I didn't even recognize what it was.
Yeah, and that was in 2012?
Yep, I believe it was that year exactly.
Well, maybe Dennis Pulowski, Paul Mestsa, Perner, and Murphy will have to sit down and have a little powwow and smooth things over because we're all getting too old to carry any bridges.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree. I'm like what I can say about the time I had with Dave. I mean, we were like brothers. We loved each other. We did a lot of great work together. But, it turns into something else every single time in music. And then, business stuff becomes involved. It's exactly the same story.
Oh, yeah. That every band that broke up, it's the same freaking story, basically, over and over again.
Without a doubt. People say, what about REM? It's like, well, for REM, there's 200 other bands that were on the charts for a minute that no one even remembers. So
yeah, exactly.
They're the exception to the rule.
So, Danny Murphy, 2012, you leave the band, you got tired of the road. What was your next handful of years looking like before you hooked up with the great Jeff Arundel?
Well, I had a business that I ran. I had like an art gallery called Grapefruit Moon Gallery. And the weird thing is, Paul, I didn't even touch a guitar more than 2 or 3 times, like for 6 years.
Wow.
I mean, I played less than a handful of times. And so when I started playing with Jeff at his studio, we kind of wrote together. And I started playing like some electric guitar overdubs on the first song we recorded. And he's like, kind of asked me, he was like, who played on your records, man? And I was like, I did, dude. I'm just rusty,
Yeah, right.
So it's not like muscle memory.
Yeah, I gotta ask you that video of, I believe it was El Camino, starts out, I think if you guys might be in the Astor, but you had this beautiful guitar. I'd never seen one. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
That's Rosary. It's a Goya guitar. Yeah, I think they were made in Italy or Spain or somewhere. It's like gold. It looks like the guitar that Liberace would play if he played guitar. Right?
No doubt. It's a beautiful guitar. The first thing I looked at, I go, oh, I love that. I'd love to get one of those. So you start playing with Jeff, and about what time frame was that? COVID time or right after COVID time?
Yeah, it was in December before like COVID started being something that was in the news, like maybe in February. So it was several years ago, and we initially we were going to make an EP, so we recorded 5 songs, and they just seemed like they kept getting better. So we thought, let's just trudge through. So the first record that was called Hope's Eternal had 12 tracks on it, and then we really didn't even take a break. We just started writing and recording again, and we put out El Camino Adios in March, I believe, of this year, and they've been playing some shows, touring it, and it's getting good reviews and some airplay, so that's kind of nice.
Fantastic. So how far you guys gotten out of the Minneapolis, North Shore, Duluth quadrant to play? Have you gotten down to Madison or Chicago?
We've done a few shows. We went down to Iowa. We've done a lot up north in Minneapolis. We're going to go to, I'm excited about this, in March of this coming year, we're going to go to Scotland, Wales, and Ireland and play like 10 or 11 shows and do some recording over there. So we're really excited about that. But just Jeff and I are going to go. We're going to go with another band that's called Overhaul, and they're a Scottish band from Glasgow.
Wow.
And their drummer and bass player are going to accompany us, and we're going to do like, pretty small pubs and clubs, like 150, 200 capacity. But we're super excited. I kind of look at it as a extended vacation, more or less, with a little bit of work thrown in. Oh,
that sounds like a lot of fun. We're talking with Dan Murphy. He's playing with his buddies Jeff Arundel and Pat Frederick as kind of the kickoff opening show at 6 o'clock at the North Shore Winery as part of the Lute Song Music Festival, which sounds great. Danny, we just got a few minutes left. It's so great to get caught up with you. What?
Nice to visit with you.
Oh, any Dan Murphy solo tracks coming down the pike?
Well, I've been recording some stuff on my own with a bunch of people I haven't played with before at Terrarium. So I've been playing with my cousin, Justin Charbonneau, that was me in the band when I quit. He replaced me for a few years. And like people like this woman named Misty Boyce and Steve Gold. And they're all like, younger than me. And it was really fun. I mean, people I'd never met before, and to go into a studio and, introduce your song. We did a little pre-production and have people relate to it in a positive way, as as well as me. It's kind of what it's all about, right?
Yeah, for sure. Those first moments, is it going to work or not?
Yeah, are they going to buy? Are they going to realize I don't know what I'm doing, or are they not going to realize I don't know what I'm doing, right?
Yeah. So, Danny, what do you do when you're not recording and performing with Scarlet Goodbye? What does a day in the life of Dan Murphy look like in the Twin Cities?
Well, up until recently, I had a business that I ran. In my whole time in Soul Asylum, 31 years, I think there were 3 years I didn't have another job other than music, maybe 1992 to 95. Mm-hmm. So I've always had a pretty aggressive side hustle, let's say.
Yeah.
And I bought a house in St. Anthony Village, and I enjoy gardening. I just planted 3 trees.
Oh, good for you.
I travel a lot. Yeah, I went to Vietnam and Thailand last year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty good life. I mean, I get residuals and, streaming revenues from the band, and I'm able to make income in other ways. So it makes me really proud and makes me appreciate all that work that I did and all those years I did touring and recording.
Yeah.
For Soul Asylum. It's great.
You put in your time and blood, sweat, and toil, and I'm glad that mailbox money. I wish I had more of it. Occasionally, I get a check. Anyway, Danny, have a great gig. Say hi to Jeff and Pat. I love Pat's playing as well. And good luck with the rest of the summer.
Taking the time. It's just called Blood, Sweat, and Beer, right? That's what it was.
That's the name of your autobiography when you write it. Thanks, Danny, man. Have a beautiful rest of the day.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah,
appreciate you. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Thanks for listening to Stars Over the Prairie. If you've your business want to take out a little advertising and get the word out to a committed audience, get a hold of me at paul@paulmestsa.com. I play every Friday from 5:30 to 7:30 at Carmony's Irish Pub, 308 East Superior Street with the Tiltown Titanettes. Like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.
Stars over the prairie.